This is what's known as Boxelder. I bought it a few months ago, kind of on a whim when I was stocking up on some cherry. And I bought it because it's got this really striking grain with pinks and grays and browns, and it's even got a bit of spalting in it. But it's just been sitting around since then because I haven't been able to figure out what to do with it. See, the problem is it's really soft. So you can't really use it for a table or a cabinet because it's just going to get all banged up. Now, I did sort of think about maybe using it for like a door panel. I think it would look good there. But in the end, what I decided to do is I thought it would make a really cool picture frame. I've worked with spalted maple before, so I know that wild grain can make for a really striking picture frame. This is Spaceman Spiff. And if you have no idea who Spaceman Spiff is or the Calvin and Hobbes comic that it came from, I'm sorry for your loss. And you might want to go do some reading right around now. You'll enjoy it. I asked my wife to draw me a Spaceman Spiff picture way back when we were dating, and drawing comics is really not her type of art that she likes to do, but she made it for me, and she doesn't think it's her best work, but I've always liked it and I've kept it, and you know, we've been married 25 years now, so I think it's about time I gave Spiff a slightly better picture frame. Now, it can't be a boring rectangular frame because those are boring and I've done plenty of them. It's got to be something different. Now, I thought about making like a rocket-shaped thing, like a 1950s, 1960s rocket-shaped frame, but you know, this is 18 by 24, and that would have been a really massive frame, so that probably doesn't work out. That's 4 feet by 32 inches. So I did a bunch of Googling online. I looked at mid-century modern and other sort of steampunky or old-fashioned futuristic type stuff. And I came up with what I think is a really cool curved style frame, and I mocked it up in SketchUp to get sort of the rough dimensions right, and that's enough to get going. Now don't be shocked, but I used up over half of these 2 big boards while making this one frame. First of all, I wanted a really wide frame to allow for the curves that I wanted to cut in it. But also with grain like this, I really wanted to be sure and select the best parts of the board with the best grain for my project. So I cut the boards in half, and then ripped them in half on the bandsaw, and then moved on through the joiner and planer, ripping them to width on the table saw, all the while making sure that the best grain was what was going to be featured. I used the dado blade and a sacrificial fence to cut the rabbets in the frame where the picture would be mounted. And I also used a Steve Ramsey style miter sled to cut my miters. I don't happen to have a set of strap clamps. They're not terribly expensive, I just don't happen to have a set. And so what I've hit on for when I often do frames is I will pop in 1 or 2 dowels into the miter joint, and that way when I clamp up the frame, it keeps it from slipping. It adds a bit of strength too, so you know, sometimes people will want to put a spline or something else to reinforce the miter joint, and I take care of that this way. Now it's interesting, of course, I wouldn't recommend buying a doweling jig for this because actually the strap clamp would be a lot cheaper than buying the doweling jig, but because I already have it, that's what I'm doing to reinforce my joints. And it's just another little tool in your arsenal for making picture frames in my shop. And now let's get creative. For the curve of the corner, I'm going to measure in 1 inch from either side and make a mark. I'm going to take my compass, and I'm also going to set that to 1 inch. I'm going to put that on the mark and use that to draw a curve here around the corner, and that tells me how much we're going to cut off as we round the corner. Now next I want to make this inward curve here along the edge. And for that I'm setting my square here to 1.5 inches, and I'll make a mark here roughly in the middle. And then I'll use my tape measure to figure out what the exact middle is, and that's sort of at the 13 1/8. I'm not looking for perfection here because after all this is handmade custom work. Now for the next part, if you have a bending gauge or a friend, you might want to try something like that. I'm doing this on my own, so I have 2 clamps here that I've put on the edge of the frame, and they are lined up with that curve that we just did. And I have here a flexible bit of 1/4 inch plywood, and I'm going to push that in, and I'm only pushing with my finger here at the center, and I'm going to bring it up to that line that I made, and then I will draw along the curve. And that gives me a nice line that I can take over to the bandsaw for cutting out the curve of the frame, and we'll repeat this on all 4 sides. Got the frame put together, the curves cut and sanded smooth, got it lacquered and waxed, and now I am ready to put it all together. And so there you have it. I think that turned out great. I think I've got a cool, spacey looking curvy frame, which I think suits Spaceman Spiff. And I think it's a wild frame, which is a great thing to do with this wood, which is too soft to use it anywhere else, but it's got some really cool grain. It's just a picture frame in some sense, but it's also, you know, what you do with the grain and the curve and the subject matter that makes it all work together. I'm really happy with it. I think it turned out great. I just need to find a place to hang it up now. So as always, I'd like to thank you for stopping by and spending some time in my shop. I hope you found something interesting and enjoyable, and we'll see you next time. How about that?